Cats are crazy, silly, and sometimes terrifying. Mine was all of those things and more. Kitty was a special kind of cat. We found him in a parking lot, and he was sweeter than any that I'd ever met. We soon found out he had many other personalities as well. If you have cats, you understand where I'm coming from. When we found him, it was October, it was raining, and he was wandering by the door of Family Video. They said that he'd been there all day. I walked up to this little, skinny, wet cat, and he came right to me. He was meowing and rubbing himself against my feet, and I was sure I loved him right then. After that, I made my mom agree to take him home with us. When I opened the car door, he voluntarily jumped in. He obviously needed us, and later we found out how much we needed him. Kitty was the sweetest, funniest, most ridiculous cat I think I've ever met. He was without a doubt unique, and if you only remember one cat in your lifetime, remember this one. After bringing him home, we took him to the vet to make sure that he had all of his shots, and then we found out that he was about 3 months old. Those first few weeks with him were spent basically trying to figure each other out. He was very ornery at first, and we thought it might just be because he's young and not really used to this house yet. We were wrong. I remember the first time we fed him. We gave him a bowl for water and a bowl for dry food. We put the bowls in front of him and waited to see if he would eat. He was just sitting there for a while staring at us, and then he looked up, and he stuck his foot in his bowl and tipped both of them over. He did this every time we tried to feed him for a few weeks, and eventually he learned to eat the food instead. While he did grow out of that habit, he still remained playful and definitely ornery. Whenever I would sweep the kitchen, I'd have a little pile going somewhere in the center, and he'd walk right up and lay in the middle of it. I'd say, "Kitty, what are you doing?" And he'd start rolling in it. He can also play a game that I had no idea cats knew how to play. He was still pretty young when this first happened. My parents had these long curtains on the window in their room that hang down to touch the ground. I was somewhere else in the house, and all of a sudden I hear Kitty meowing, this loud cry, probably every 10 to 15 seconds. I'd look around, but I wouldn't find him, so I'd go back to whatever I was doing. And then I'd hear it again, louder and louder each time. And this kept happening until finally I'm like, okay, there must be something wrong. He's really getting annoying. So I search the house, and finally I check my parents' room, and I see his tail sticking out from under the curtain, and the rest of him is hiding behind it. My cat was playing hide and seek. Laughing, I pull open the curtain, and he jumps out at me wanting to play. To this day, he still would hide behind there and cry, waiting for me to find him. Cats are also very intuitive. I personally believe that they can read our minds, but we'll see. Kitty always knew whether I was okay or not. If I was laying in bed crying, he would jump up and curl himself around my neck, kind of like one of those airplane pillows, but like backwards. As sweet as it was, he'd eventually have to lay somewhere else because I couldn't breathe. If I was angry or stressed about something, he would do little things like rub himself against my legs or bring me one of his toys. Whether he knew it or not, he was helping. They also know when it's time to eat, so sometimes the affection is more related to their stomach than to my own feelings, but I'll take what I can get. Like us humans, cats are very moody. One minute they're cute and enjoying you petting them, and then all of a sudden they're chewing on your hand. And they're randomly terrified of things that don't make any sense. Once we came home from the store with a watermelon, and oh my gosh, it was at the end of the world. I carry it in and I set it on the floor, and Kitty's eyes get really big, and he pins his ears back. And I look at him, and I'm like, it's okay, Kitty. And he has about 10 different nicknames, by the way. He starts to crawl over to it really slowly, and he stays back, but he stretches out one paw and, like, smacks it, like, you know, they go like that. He's waiting for something to pop out or something. Nothing does, and he gets a little closer, and he smells it. And finally he realizes that it's not going to eat him, and now he likes it. So he starts rubbing his face on it, and he's purring. He does the same thing with the broom. Now he likes it so much that he latches on, and I end up, like, dragging him around the kitchen. His extreme curiosity also got him into trouble sometimes. We learned the hard way that you can't leave open cups of water out anywhere. Kitty would see a cup and want to, I guess, smell what was inside. And in order to do so, he'd have to jam his head inside a cup. It was obviously too small. He does it anyway, gets stuck, and throws his head around, and the cup comes off and goes flying across the room. As entertaining as it is, it's also a huge mess, especially when he does it with every single cup he finds, as if he didn't learn from the first 12. He also thought he liked the outdoors, especially snow. In the wintertime, he'd sit at the door and watch outside and cry, so we'd get his harness and leash, and we'd take him for a walk in the yard. Every time he took a step, he'd pop up in the air and shake around because it's so cold. And he'd sniff around a little bit and then go back to the door because he was ready to go back inside. He wanted to know what it was, but decided warmth was the better option. His orneriness, playfulness, and ability to judge human emotions and entertaining personality taught me right away how much I needed him. It also taught me how much of a cat person I actually am. I had a dog as a kid, and I loved her so much. She died when I was in the 5th grade, and I cried all the way through a math test. My family never planned on getting another dog, because in our minds we couldn't imagine another one being as good as she was. But after we met Kitty, we discovered we could keep him and it would be okay. We felt no guilt and there was no comparing the two because they were so different. We had our dog Mickey, and we loved her, and then we had Kitty, and we loved him too. Kitty was the sweetest, funniest, most ridiculous cat I think I've ever met. He was without a doubt unique, and if you only remember one cat in your lifetime, remember this one.